relationship for so long. How do you balance it all? I guess would be my best question.
That is a great question, Mitchell. I take naps. No, no, seriously.
Let me tell you, rest is a holy thing.
Rest is a ministry. Let me tell you. Let me tell you. No, that word you said, balance. That is the key. So when we're talking about just a couple things I want to surface, so I said that authenticity is one of my highest values, right? Like show up as yourself, be yourself. The world needs you to be uniquely you, not to try to be like someone else.
We have enough copycats, by the way.
Right, we have enough.
We have enough of those.
Be an original. The other one that's really important to me, and I feel like we surfaced it a little bit, is a sense of curiosity. I'm like, my brain just gets like, even like right now in this room, like, how is that light working? How's that camera working? How is this, like, what's that? Like, my brain is curious, and I would encourage you to approach the world with a sense of curiosity. When you get bored, when you're feeling like, I don't care about this anymore, find something and get real curious about it and want to know everything about it. When you walk into a room, be curious about the people and what's happening. Let your brain just get turned on in a way to all sorts of things. And then the third thing for me is what you just said, is balance. So much of life and mental health and just managing yourself and finding happiness and joy is about balance. You can't always be in work mode. You can't always be in artistic creation mode. So for me, it's about going home and logging off. I don't check email after a certain time. And that's hard for me because I'm an email person. I'm like on my phone. I don't check email after a certain hour.
That had to become a practice.
It had to become a practice. I'm still practicing it. I try to get into bed at a certain time at night and really get a full night's rest. If I'm really tired, I'll go home and take a nap for like an hour and then maybe get back up and do some other things. Learning to say no. I was one of those people that said
boundaries.
Yes. I was boundaries. I was one of those
boundaries. People.
Yes. And I did say earlier, like, show up for yourself when people ask you to show up. Yes, but you have to use discretion. You have to decide.
You do.
All right, which way? Because sometimes you just need to say no to things so that you can take care of yourself.
Because you can't keep leading if you have nothing to lead with.
Yes. On the weekends, I try not to do too much work. When I leave work on Friday, if somebody's emailing me or texting me over the weekend, I'm like, oh, well, they're not going to get an answer from me.
Roz is gone. I'm telling y'all, Roz dipped faster than me. And I thought I was leaving fast. I'll be
Fridays,
gone.
I'm just like, Friday to Sunday is my me time. I need to spend time with my daughters. Important. I need to eat some good food. I need to watch some Netflix and do nothing and just turn off and restore and recharge. So one of my best mentor, a woman from college, Joy Vandervoort Cobb, love her to pieces. My theater mentor, director, leadership hero. She said to me years ago, I was struggling with some stuff, and she wrote it down and she said, keep it with you. And her statement was, you can only give from your excess. And I struggled with that for years to try to understand what that means. You can only give from your excess. So what she was trying to say to me, and I still carry that with me, is we only have so much energy in a day. You only have so many hours, so many minutes in a day, right? And you have to do all the things you need to do for yourself, all your responsibilities that you have to do. And then you might have a little bit left over. And sometimes with that little bit we have left over, we're out here trying to do everything for everybody else. Oh, let me go take this person some food. Let me do this. Let me do that. Let me call this person. Let me run over here and do that. No, honey. You need to rest. You need to restore so that then you'll have some more to give. If you're giving it all out, you're giving everything, you're going to be spent. You're going to be tired. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to burn out easy. So it's important to give to people and give of your spirit. I love this idea of generosity of spirit, but you can only give from what you have extra, because you got to take care of yourself first. Self-preservation is key. And so
old folks would tell you, go somewhere and sit down.
Sit down.
That's how I kept boundaries in my head, is go somewhere and sit down.
Sit down.
Go somewhere and sit down. And they'll do it just like this. Go over there and sit down.
Uh-huh.
And you
Uh-huh.
be like,
Uh-huh.
yes, ma'am.
So that's how I do it. That's how I do it. I rest. I keep a reserve for myself. I keep my family time sacred. I keep my weekends sacred. I try to keep my friendships close and going. Like when you were saying, I'm like, oh, Rod's the principal now. She's on a big level. When I got the job, some of my friends were like, oh, we're never going to see you. You're going to be too busy for us. You got this big time job now. I was like, no. So it's important to me that I keep my friendships going. I'm like, hey, let's go after work to this place. Let's on the weekend get together because my friends are important to my spirit. And then the last thing I would say that helps me is my faith. You know, I'm a faith based person. So not everyone is, but for me, connecting to source, to the universe, whatever you want to call it, getting out in nature, whatever it is, saying a prayer, meditating, the higher power, how it be. For me, that's important.
I think something you really said is learning how to say no, also. But can we talk about that in leadership, especially because when you're leading a certain group of people, and when you're leading people in general, one thing that I realize is that they're not gonna like every move that you make, but they're still here to access what you have. So they're not gonna like the decision you made to even say no, to not respond to that email until you were ready. But they're still here for your voice. They're still here for what you have to offer. They're still here. They're still here to hear what you have to say. But my only thing about that is when you're leading people, you have to be careful. And when I say you have to be careful, I don't mean you have to be careful of how you lead. I mean you have to be careful of what you lead from.
Yes. So I can be very blunt sometimes. And I have to be careful with that. And that nature in me just comes from being a truth teller. I'm a truth seeker. I'm a truth bearer. I'm a truth teller. I like to speak truth to power. I think that authenticity of who we are. You just got to be true to yourself. You got to be true, right? And sometimes in being true, it can come off a certain way to people, right? Everybody is not ready for the truth. They don't want to hear it. It's not what they want to hear, right? But you have to realize you, as the leader of whatever it is, were placed in that position for a reason, and that it's your responsibility to make the tough choices. And people might not like it, but they get over it. And I'm a people person, and I love people, and I'm empathetic. I'm try my best to be open hearted, and you have to be careful to cross the line and not to become a people pleaser. Right? When you're the type
that line of people person and people.
Right?
Yeah,
it's
that's
a fine
good.
line. When you love people, I'm the type I just want everyone to get along. I want everyone to come to school, come to BSA and feel a sense of joy and belonging and happiness. I just want it to be like good vibes and good energy. But that's not going to always be the case. People are going to be upset about something. People aren't going to like this decision. Some think it should go this way. Others think it's going to go that way. And then you have to choose. But what I find is when you're choosing from a place of good intentions, your heart is in the right place. You might not always get it right. There are decisions that I made that I regretted later. But my heart was in the right place. My intentions were good, even though the decision might not have been the best decision. And I have to go back and rest on that. You can't beat yourself up like, oh man, I did that. I should have did that. It didn't turn out right. It's like, but were your intentions good? Yes. But I'm not perfect. We're all human beings. So we're going to make mistakes, and learning how to forgive yourself and learning that you can't please all the people all of the time. So you may as well just do what's right.
I mean, hey, I I can appreciate that for a various amount of reasons. I love how we address the fine line of people person and people pleaser. And it is a very, like, if we're being honest, it is a very fine line. It's a very fine line, but one thing I can appreciate um in being a leader and your style of leadership, you've always been open to diversity. And that's why I feel like you being the I say head honcho director, but I say head honcho. Being head honcho, you are really important about your work. I know we hit on a bit on it earlier, but you're really important in your work. in diversity, and you're really important about, and BSA is a very diverse school, right? And I feel like with artistry of today, um, this is my, I guess, so like personal philosophy, personal, call it what you will, with artists of today. One thing I found about us is that we get bored of the normal.
Yes.
We get very, very bored of normal way of thinking, or normal way of doing, normal way of thinking. And one thing I can appreciate, you, and you said a little bit about this earlier as well, is that when you're bored, be curious. One thing I found about my generation is that we're curious to our own default. So we're curious to a point where it affects us negatively. I'll give you an example. Going to an inner city middle school, right? A lot of kids would end up just being like, man, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be bothered with this. But there will be something in the room that, or something else, something of a specific topic that now they've like been interested, like now they're interested in. And I always found that the way that I feel like, and the reason why I say it's to our default is because it can be a negative or a positive. And people can use it against us as a negative or positive. Sometimes people will do stuff and get us to go over here and be curious about something else so they can get us to be quiet. Or we will do a thing where now we're bored of what's actually going on, and we'll go do a whole different thing when we kind of need to focus on. So and I was going to ask you, how do you keep the people that you're leading in lead, how do you keep them interested?
That's a great question. Innovation and thinking outside of the box and taking risk. Maybe it's my age or my generation of where I come from, of being a Gen Xer. It's I don't want to do the same old things. Like, it's boring to just do things the same old way. And so I try to encourage people to innovate, of like, okay, let's come up with a new idea. All right, we did this event last year, but how do we want to do this event differently this year? And making space for other voices. I'm not like a top heavy leader of like, okay, this is what it is and this is what it needs to be. I'm more of like, all right, let's sit down and talk about what it could be. And I find that when you invite different voices to the table, that is where those different interesting ideas come from. If you feel like, all right, it has to all come from me, it's going to be limited in your experiences. But if you get people around the table with different views, different perspectives, you're listening to each other, you're feeding off of each other. I love a good brainstorming session. Let's brainstorm, like, let's go, let's kick around ideas. Try something different, because you never know what you're going to come up with. And that's risky. That's taking a risk. And I had to struggle with that at BSA a little bit. And I still do, in the sense that in our 42-year history as a school, we have been very successful, right? We've produced some great alumni who are out doing amazing things. And some people, when I first started, would say, all right, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's been working fine, just like it is. So I was sort of nervous when I first came in to start making changes and do new things, even though I felt like there was a need to do so. It's like, oh, I'm going to mess it up. BSA has had all these success over the years, and I
with
come
BSA
in,
being such a progressive school,
right? I'm like, if I come in and I change one thing, that might be the one thing that was holding everything together. I'm gonna make a mess of everything. But I had to let that idea go. I had to let that worry go and say, the reason we've been successful over the years, and I think what's going to continue to make us be even more successful, is as artists to not be afraid to take risk and to do something different, and to know when is the time to do that and when it's not. Because there's sometimes you're like, no, I'm not messing with that right now, because that's going to put everybody in a whirlwind and it's not going to be worth it. But this over here, I could change that. And like, change is incremental, and you have to build your team, right? I'm only as strong as the team that's around me. And the team is only strong if we allow for capacity building by allowing other people to lead. Sometimes we don't allow other people to lead, so things stay stagnant and stay the same. But you have to say, all right, I want you to do this. I want you to be in charge of that. I want you to be in charge of that. And I'm going to back off and leave you alone and see what you come up with. 9 times out of 10, people come up with stuff way better than I would
Just
have.
like, oh, all right.
Oh, you got that? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. You got that. You got that. And so building capacity for other people. Because if you hold on to something so tight, you're not building capacity for the other leaders and young people or whoever else on your team around you to grow. So allow space for other people to try things, to make mistakes, to mess it up. And then see what they can do, right? Give people grace to fail, to try, to experiment, and then come back to the table. Lots of self-reflection, and all that stuff takes time. And I think that's why there is less collaborative leadership, because people just want to be like, all right, this is what it is. Get it done. We're done with that. That was 30 minutes. That was 15 minutes. But when you're truly trying to be collaborative and innovative and do something different, what would take a normal leader 30 minutes to just be like, okay, this is what we're doing, boom, 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 go. If you're truly collaborative, that might take 2 hours to sit down and in a circle, really collaborative, to hear everybody's voices, to vet ideas, to go back and forth. And then you might leave the meeting and still don't know what you're going to do. But then something like clicks. Something clicks, and then you come back, and then you can go even faster because you've taken the time to engage everybody, to get everybody involved, to listen to the voices and the heartbeats around you. And I think that that's the key to innovation and trying new things. And I love that. I love that process. It's difficult, but it's worthy. It's worthwhile.
That's one thing I can appreciate about art, is that it's progressive. And with art, you'll fail if you try to keep it the same.
Yes.
And you will. Art is something you always have to think of outside of the box. And I was going to ask you, how is it well, I guess it wasn't maybe hard for you, but the transition of being an artist to now, your director, your administration. How is that? Because administration is such a do it this way job. And when you bring an artist to administration, that can get tricky because everybody's used to that like same cookie cutter. This is how it's done. This is how you do it. This is how it's done. And then the artist is coming like, nope, that all of this has to go, because now the progressive way of doing it, it's like a new way. And I feel like it's always going to be a new way, right? There's always going to be a new way to do something. So you either rock with it or you keep it the same. And sometimes the same gets stale.
Yes. Well, I would say it was very difficult. It still continues to be difficult. I just recently had some light bulb moments to help me put it in the right place. When you think of yourself in a certain way for so many years, sometimes it's the self-perception, right? So I have a MFA in theater. I worked at Center Stage for a really long time in community education, and directed and produced all around town. And I had this identity of myself as a artist, a community artist, like all of these different things. So becoming an administrator and sort of not practicing my art on a regular basis like I had been before, it took a shift in my own mind frame, and it took a certain type of acceptance to be like, it's okay. Like, it's okay. In your soul, you're still an artist. It's all right. You might not be on stage for a while, or you might not be directing for a while, but it is okay. You'll always be an artist to your heart, in your soul, in your spirit. But the universe is calling you to do something else right now. And there's nothing wrong with that. And you're going to learn and grow and stretch yourself and challenge yourself in new ways that you haven't in a really, really long time. So that's okay. But I had to get to the point, everything. And I had to get to the point where I was okay with that. And, it's so interesting. I hear students talk sometimes like, oh, the administration does this, and the administration that, and the administration this, and the administration that. I'm like, you're just talking about me, right? Like, it's just Roz. It's just me. Like, this idea there's this big bad wolf, the administration. It's me, and it's the the two assistant principals at the school, and our other arts leaders and academic leaders. But I'm just a person, you know what I mean? And so, it's a shift. It's a mind. It's a perspective. A shift in perspective.
Was there any grief behind that though?
Yeah, absolutely.
Grief behind, because you're switching roles, and sometimes when you're leaving something and going to something else, I know how hard transition can be. Sometimes you got to grieve what you left.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. When
but
I go see shows and plays and performances now, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't get to do that anymore. And my friends who are directors and producers and they're doing stuff and they're telling me about their projects, I'm living vicariously through them. Like, oh, that's so cool. Can I come by to your rehearsal and just sit in the back?
just sit in the back.
Just sit in the back. So there is a bit of a grieve. I don't know if I would call it grieving, but there is a bit of letting go. But it was like you said, all of this happened during the pandemic. So at that time, nobody was really doing that much performance because people didn't really know what's going on with COVID. So most of my friends who are in theater and performance spent like a year and a half or 2 years not practicing their art form, not doing their thing, staying at home over Zoom, trying to figure out how can you do a play reading on Zoom, and then just realize it's just not the same,
And then
but
Zoom
still
lag
trying to
sucks.
make it right and just still trying to make it work. And so because there was that sort of hiatus for most performing artists, I was on that same hiatus. And then it was just like, when we came back from the pandemic and everything started to kind of open back up, I was just like, all right, I'm just going to continue to not do that anymore because I wasn't doing it for the past almost 2 years anyway. So it's fine. And I also feel like I'll come back around to it eventually. So
You never really left.
oh, yeah. So yeah, the way I've been describing it, and it's like a visual reference for me of like, I just put that on the shelf for a little while. Like it's over here.
shelf.
I could touch it. I can look at it. I can look back through the shows I produced and directed and the things I've done before. It's just right there. And eventually I'll grab it, I'll open it off the shelf and open it back up and put it here. And it'll be a major part of my life at some point. But when you're an artist, it's something that you feel in your soul. Even if you're not practicing or doing that thing, it still is so deeply in you. I can't totally separate myself from it ever.
Artistry, when you're an artist, you'll never not be an artist. I could walk away from theater, right? I could go into a completely different profession after I leave BSA, but I'll never not be an actor. You can take the actor out the show. Can't take the show out the actor.
I like that. I
Can't
like
take the show out
that.
the actor.
I like that.
Roz,
Yes.
mom,
Yes.
head honcho, doctor. I don't care anymore. I don't have it.
Are you manifesting a PhD for me? Because you keep calling me doctor, and I did not plan on being a PhD. When I got my MFA, I'm like, I'm done with school.
So if she gets
But
a
maybe
PhD at any point,
you
in
heard it
time,
here first. If I do
if she
become
gets a
Dr.
PhD
Roz,
at
you
any
heard it
point in
here.
time,
You heard it here.
this episode. Remember, hear ye,
Hear ye.
hear ye. Right. I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you, Mitchell.
You have no idea how much. I mean, yeah, I call you school mom and all that kind of stuff, and I walk in your office just to do absolutely nothing but sit in that chair you got in the corner. I appreciate that.
I'm like, here, take a snack. You need a snack?
Take a snack. You know something? And I'll sit there quiet. Because we have this thing where I'll walk in your office and just want to be alone from people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do my emails. You go ahead and sit there, take
Like,
your moment.
Hey, you okay? Yeah, I just need to be alone. Cool.
And I'll be like, you're going back to class in 10 minutes, right? Who I need to write the
That's
pass to.
That's okay. I just need a moment to not be in front of a whole bunch of people.
Yes.
And I can, that's one thing I can appreciate you on and off camera is that you never change. You've never changed. You know, you've just always been this kind, genuine, very sweet person that understands, and that while you are still able to collaborate, we do consider you to be the leader. And we consider you to be the leaders because you have a lot of stuff that, I mean, sure, the theater department got access to it when you started working there. We know that, okay, Roz is an artist. But now I was blessed to see Roz in a different form, right? I was blessed to see Roz the artist. I was fortunate to see Roz, just bump into Roz one day at like an Arena Players thing that she was directing.
Yes,
and then come see the show because I'm like,
Yes.
all right, yeah, that's going to be a good show. And then now see Roz as an administrator winning awards for leadership and diversity, which I feel like is a great thing. And just doing any and everything and got 3 different sections of meetings during the day. Like the amount of times I walk in there, be like, "Hey, you busy? Yep, got a meeting here, meeting here."
Yep.
There's nothing I can say. Just but I can appreciate you.
Thank you.
So
Thank you. I
thank you for
appreciate you as well. Thank you for inviting me here. I know I was trying to get here for a while. I'm glad I could finally be here. This is
while,
for a while, and we made it. We made it happen. Here we go. Here we go.
I'm excited. I got a meeting. I'm excited. I got a meeting.
Yes.
I got excited. She texted me. It was like, I'm outside. I went
Yes.
internally because I was still recording. Internally, I went, let's go. Let's go. Because I knew this was going to be a really good episode.
Well,
I think this is one of my favorite episodes.
Thank you so much, Mitchell. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of all of you guys that are doing this work on behalf of Baltimore City Schools and really getting the message out there and inspiring yourselves and inspiring other young people and adults even who tune in and listen. So I appreciate the opportunity to just talk about some of my concepts around leadership and around life and all the things that we're saying and talking about. Sure, they relate to art and leadership, but they really relate to life as well. The way that you live your life with a sense of authenticity, curiosity, collaborative and shared leadership and accountability. Those are all things that will work really well for you in life too. Like, don't be afraid to take risk and be messy. Don't not messy in a negative sense, but like life is messy. So like live in that moment and then things get better. That's what I meant by that. Don't be messy. But and to take time for yourself, to balance, to only give from your access. Make sure you're restoring yourself before you go out there and try to do everything for everybody else. You know, Baltimore City is a special place, and I've lived in Baltimore for 22 years now, and I love calling it home. And our city, sometimes we deal with a lot of violence, and there's a lot of crime and murders and issues within the city schools and other things that we're going through. But I hope that as Baltimoreans that we recognize how unique we are, how special we are. The nation is watching us, and sometimes the world is even watching us. And I'm not sure why. There's something about this unique, quirky town by the sea. I think about Nina Simone's song, Baltimore. There's something here in the spirit and the energy of the people. It could be our ancestors, because so many of our ancestors that were in the transatlantic slave trade came through these harbors here and through Annapolis. And there's power in our city. And we have to love ourselves and love our youth and recognize our talent and recognize how special we are and work to fulfill our potential. Work to change some of the violence that we're seeing and the trauma that our students are experiencing. When I think about the different young people that have been murdered and the shootings that have happened at places like Edmondson West Side, and last week a student from Forest Park was murdered, it just breaks my heart. So we as a city have to find ways, whether it's through our art or our culture or whatever it is. We have a new governor, Wes Moore. We have an amazing mayor, Brandon Scott. Like, we have all of the ingredients that we need. We have all the ingredients that we need right here in Baltimore City to create a wonderful recipe for success for our students and for ourselves. So let's just all push to create this great legacy. And when I think about change and like the rippling effects of change and improvement, it starts with self. It starts at home. Love yourself, love others around you, your little nieces, nephews, cousins, neighbors. It starts at home. So take care of yourself, take care of your people, inspire one another, encourage one another, seek mental health support if you need it. I know our whole topic today was around mental health. A lot of the violence that we're seeing and the crime and murders that we're seeing in our city is coming from deep trauma that people are experiencing. So get the help for your friends and family. See something, say something. I think something going on with yo over there. He might need some help. Our city is just a beautiful, wonderful place. I just want all of us to recognize the potential that we have and the push towards greatness that we all can make together.
Leaders, you are appreciated. You are loved. We are proud of you. Do not overwork yourself. Do not overwork yourself. The more you refuse to say no, the less you'll have to back up your yes. The more you refuse to say no, the less you'll have to back up your yes. Because at some point, you got to rest what they're asking for. And I'm not saying put your gift on the shelf. I'm not saying put it there and let it stay there. I'm saying at some point, you got to rest what they're asking you for. Is because you can't keep leading and giving the gift of what you have, and you can't care for your humanity. And your gift is not wrapped up in your humanity. I need you to understand the difference between the two. Yeah. For more information, www.baltimorecityschools.org, and for mental health resources, for mental health support, www.baltimorecityschools.org/mental-health-updates. I know, really long, right? But it's necessary. Like our YouTube channel, City Schools TV. I'm full right now. Like, that's where I am in this conversation. I'm full. So usually I have a lot more energy doing this kind of thing, but with this conversation, I'm full. It's because my little heart is glad. Just glad. Like our YouTube channel, City Schools TV, our Instagram at baltcityschools.org. Before I do my actual intro, rest in peace, Tyree Nichols.
Yes. Yes.
This has got to stop. Look at me. Hi. I am the same complexion as Tyree. I've always been this complexion, and I cannot change the complexion that I am. Coming from someone who lives in an inner city where the exact same thing happens, this has got to stop. At some point, yes, we have to care for our cops. Yes, we have to care for our citizens. Yes, we have to care. But if cops who are supposed to protect and serve have a complete switch of mind, that is a problem. That is a problem. If cops who are supposed to protect us make the human citizen feel like they do more harm than good, that is a problem. And I need, if you don't hear anything else in this episode, this is as real as it gets. It doesn't get any realer than this. It doesn't get any realer than this. This has got to stop. And at some point, like I said, yes, we got to protect cops. Yes, we got to do this. Yes, we have to do that. We need people alive. We need people's fathers alive. I'm 17. I'm blessed to not have lost my father to gun violence. I'm blessed to not have lost my brother or my uncle or my cousin to gun violence. I'm sorry, I did lose a cousin to violence. There's pain attached to it for the aftermath. You're not just killing a person. You're killing a father. You're killing a pastor. You're killing a friend. You're killing a husband. You're killing a son. You're murdering somebody's lifeline. It's gotta stop. With that, these have been your announcements. Govern yourself accordingly.